All right, everybody, welcome back to the program. Today, we're talking about the observation of mind and how we're going to do the observation of mind, but with a little twist to make it a little bit more pertinent to lucid dreaming. And then it's also going to be we're going to cover the observation meditation with this twist, and then the content that comes up during that meditation exercise we're going to bring into our burning meditation, which for people that aren't familiar with the burning meditation that may be specifically new to just this program, you can progress to the next module of this course to learn exactly about how to do the burning meditation and to download guided meditations, both a short and long version of it. And Brian's going to go through a way that we're going to tweak the burning meditation to specifically clear away some of the content that we discover that comes up when we sit and do this specific version of the observation meditation. Does that sound pretty accurate?
That's very accurate. Absolutely.
Okay, great.
It's good, So, I probably just want to address to everyone too that, a lot of these preliminaries, because I don't see a lot of these preliminaries on other programs, but, I've found over the years that these are the things that really make things move much quicker and in a much better form, right? So, it may be like, oh, I've got to do this writing stuff. I'm not a big writer, so I don't enjoy that. I've never really enjoyed that whole journaling process, but I do it because it makes everything so much better, and I want a clear record of what I'm doing so that I can look back and say, oh, here's where I ended up with these markers that are good to show my progress, but also any patterns that come up that may be tripping me up over time. And so I want to be able to identify them and correct them, right? So I have nice, clear metrics or measuring stick to look at all of these aspects of my practice so that I can refine it, make it better, right? Make it, more elite, and with the end product being able to get to, and being engaged in the lucid dreaming process in a much, much better way, right? So I know it's a lot of stuff preliminarily, but it really will make a huge difference in your practice. So better to do it now and to sort of get that part out of the way. It's sort of like getting sore muscles when you do a new, nobody likes them, right? But we know it's part of the process of getting in shape and changing up our exercise routine. And if we're doing it right, we're going to be sore, right? And so, we're not looking for the pain, but, it's part of the process. So, and we know that that's showing us that we're progressing, right? Because we're, tweaking muscles that weren't, and they're complaining about that. But then they're going to grow, and they're going to, do what they need to do in order to get that, the physical apparatus, the physical vessel that you're walking around in to be at what you consider its ideal state, right? So
right. And it's such an important point too. And I'm glad you brought it up. Not only that, but also that, it's kind of like, well, aren't we going to get into starting to do like reality checks and actual lucid dreaming techniques? I mean, isn't that like step one, So we're definitely taking a different approach than what people might be used to or have maybe read about in the past or other books. But I think there's hopefully. I mean, I think there's good reason for why we're doing it this way.
Well, in the end, it's much more beneficial. I mean, ask anybody that, like, let's say anybody who's engaged in carpentry or anything that's of a physical nature like that. You're building something out. If your foundation sucks, or you've made a couple wrong, measurements, and you've cut the wood, or you've nailed things together or whatever, and you find you go to put it in the place it's supposed to go and it doesn't fit. What do you have to do? You can't just jam it in there. I mean, I guess some people would, but if it's off enough, you're going to have to go back to the beginning, tear the whole damn thing apart and start over again, right? So, and that's what I think happens with a lot of people lucid dreaming, is that they engage it, right up front, and they do a few times, and they use these techniques, and it bounces them in, and they have that proclivity to do that. But then they want to go farther than that, and they can't get over it. So what do? They either drop it as something that's not achievable, or, couldn't get past that point, or they just keep doing this, repeating the same process over and over and over again, never getting any farther, never being able to expand it, or they have to find a way that they can accentuate those foundational parts so that then they can progress and get in there and go much further than they were able to before that. And so I just like to get those things out of the way, because why go backwards, right? The whole idea with this is, to not just to give you the experience, but to get you in there and enable you to go as far as you want. And, if you get to stage 2 and you haven't done, the exercises in stage 1, you're going to come up against a wall that you're not going to be able to get over, or you're going to expend a ton of energy and frustration and time trying to do it in some weird way that's, eventually you're going to have to go back. And nobody wants to go back when they've progressed so far, right? So it's like, oh, I'm building it all over again. Well, why do that? Why not just do it right the first time? Measure twice, cut once, right? So it's like,
Absolutely.
make sure everything's in the right order. I just think that it's the most efficient way to do it, and the most effective too, when it comes right down to it. So that's why we do this. So I
Nice.
make no other apologies other than that. Yeah. So sorry for the boring parts, and believe me, when you get into the lucid parts, you're going to be thrilled. Okay, so all will be forgiven then, I hope. So maybe not. Maybe you'll still hold the journaling over my head. I could, I could be okay with that. So, all right. So observation of mind, that's the next stage, right? So, and we do this generally on a regular basis. I still do this practice on a regular basis because I'm always trying to uncover, how my mind works, what are my tendencies and all of that. What have I overcome? And what am I looking to do now? And what little secrets will I uncover, in myself? Again, always trying to know myself, right? As that reference point comes up when I need it most, I want to make sure I know where I stand. And so the more solid that is, the better reference point you're going to have, the more stable that point's going to be. If you do, and you will, step into the unknown, you're only going to have yourself to look toward, to clear that. So you need to know, the deepest parts of yourself in order to, to do that efficiently and effectively. So, but this one is a little bit different. We tweak it just a little bit for lucid dreaming, right? I want you to ask. So, before I get to that, the basic practice is sit in a comfortable position, and you're just observing your mind, right? So, usually I'll either do it with no sound or some kind of sound that's just sort of a blanket noise. Like I tend to do a lot of things with rain, right? Not just the white noise in the background, although if you're good with that, do it. I use rain just because it's that steady pattern of non-pattern. Basically, it really brings my mind into that neutral place, right? And so it helps me to get deeper, more relaxed, and just sort of be in that place where I've taken out the auditory sense, right? I've closed my eyes, so I've taken out the visual sense. And most of us know, your visual sense is 80% of your perceptual state, at least according to, the most recent, neurology and psychology. Is like vision is 80% of how you interact with the world. So, and then sound. So I've taken two of those things out, right? And so, all I have left, right, is my sense of taste and my sense of smell and my tactile sensation, which if I relax enough, I don't have to worry so much about scent and taste unless you're burning incense or doing something like that, right? So otherwise, I'm just really trying to, move inside myself, and I'm just observing my mind. Normally I wouldn't have any agenda, right? I would just sort of rest and just see what comes up, right? Acknowledge it and let it go, right? And I'm not forcing it. I'm literally just looking at what comes up, acknowledging it, that it's there, and that's part of me, and no judgment, and I just let it go. All right. So we're going to tweak that just a little bit. I want you to before you actually sit down and do that, ask yourself this question, or a variation on that, but you want to be very specific and very short with the question. And the question is, what about lucid dreaming frightens me? What about lucid dreaming frightens me? So what aspects of lucid dreaming, or what specific part of lucid dreaming frightens me? And some people go, oh, I'm not afraid. I'm like so excited to get in there. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's good, but, extend your mind a little bit. There will be something that will come up. And so better to understand at least those initial phases. Like for me, it was the transition. Like in my own personal case, I was like terrified of the transition. Why? Because when I was doing, the initial practices and just doing that and understanding that transitional stage, right, where I was like consciously moving from wakefulness to sleep and into lucidity, there can be that sense of large sound, like a rushing train or a heavy wind, and a feeling of movement sometimes, right, like super speed. And I wasn't good with that. It's like, I'm not a person that likes roller coasters or fast rides or things like that. I'm not that type of person. you know, as weird as that sounds, right? So considering what I do, right? So but I wasn't. So I was really, that was the part that was fearful for me, right? I hadn't experienced it yet, but then I started wondering, like, is my fear actually keeping me from experiencing that? I was having, a decent number of, dream-induced lucid dreams and those types of things. But I was like, really starting to play around with this idea of, could I, induce it from, a wild. So that's where those fear elements came up for me. And so we all have things like this, and it could be the most, don't judge it, right? It could be ridiculous. Like some people be like, oh man, I love roller coasters. I love, riding fast rides and doing all this stuff. I don't understand why that would be so uncomfortable for you. It doesn't have to be, there doesn't have to be any conscious understanding of it, right? It's like, it's just
It
that
doesn't.
part that your conscious mind is bringing up that's going to keep you from actually engaging the process. It's going to be one of those hurdles you got to get over. So if we can dissipate that and take the teeth out of it right from the beginning, it's going to have less impact on you. And there's going to be a lot less frustration, right? Because, the first stage is finding out what it is, right? It might be multiple things, and you want to write them down when you're done, right? I mean, and we're not talking hours of meditative practice, right? Or going off to the cave in the Himalayas for this, right? It's like, we're talking, set your alarm on your phone or your watch, and, it's like 5 minutes, literally. Believe me, your mind will bring up to you pretty damn quick when you ask it those, a question that's so succinct and there's no way to get around it, right? You're literally, and I would suggest, say, ask the question out loud and direct it toward yourself, right? Those little nuances make all the difference, right? Because there's one thing that we know: your subconscious hates not being able to give you answers. It doesn't like that gatekeeper called the conscious mind, right? So it's going to do everything in its power to sort of give you the answer you're searching for if you ask it the question directly. So that's a trick for a lot of other things too, right? So how we can engage it on a better level and get the help that we need when we want it. So do that. So just ask that question: what about lucid dreaming frightens me? And then, go into that observation of mind where you're just sitting, relaxing the body, observing what comes up with that idea, and you don't have to keep pushing it out there. You don't have to, just sit and relax and observe. And something comes up, just acknowledge it, let it go. No judgment. Don't judge yourself on that. When you judge something, it adds energy to it, right? It makes that connection, makes it stronger. You don't want to do that. There's no reason for it, right? Don't judge yourself. on that stuff. There'll be plenty of things that you can, I'll encourage you to hold your own toes to the fire around. But in this case, no, don't judge what makes you afraid, right? There's reasons for it. And just know that that's whatever reason it is, you're going to figure it out. And, and then you're going to go beyond that. So it's a great exercise to do this. Very simple, very, very easy. Don't go past the 5 minutes. If you've given yourself 5 minutes, do 5 minutes. If you tell yourself 10 minutes, then do 10 minutes. Don't keep going, right? You want your conscious mind to start trusting you that you're going to stick to your word, right? I'm only going to do 5 minutes. And, if you leave me alone and let me do this, then, don't make my stomach growl because I'm hungry for breakfast or whatever it is, right? Don't bother me, basically. Then in 5 minutes, I'll do something nice for you or whatever. I'll let you eat. I'll have your cup of coffee or whatever it is, right? So you'll notice I use a lot of food references because I love it so much. So, but anyway, but that's it. Don't judge, just, and the other thing is do what you say you're going to do. You need to start building that rapport with your mind that you only do what you say you're going to do. And then you do that, and that's it. And that way it'll start trusting you, because if you go past that point and it's been holding itself back, it's like, oh, you lied. You went past that point, right? We've all had little kids say that to kids, our own children, hopefully. And it's like, oh, you said we were just going here. And it's like, you go someplace, then you go to the dentist, right? It's like, oh my God, I'm never trusting you again. And then you're in therapy for 100 years, so it's like, so we don't want to do that. We want to break that habit right now. Okay. So if you say you're going to do 5 minutes, do 5 minutes. All right. No more. But hold it to the 5 minutes. Don't do less, right? You don't want it to break you, right? So,
right.
And that's, so it's going to be a mutual, mutual collaboration on you guys' part, right? So that's what you want to build. So observe it. And once you have that, when you come out of it, you write down what your observations were, right? You don't have to get them all, but some will repeat, and those are the ones that are most pressing, right? Sometimes it will be the first one. Sometimes it'll be the last one, right? And sometimes you need to sort of relax a little farther into it to make sure that, it's allowed to come up, right? Because you may be holding it back, because who wants to face their fears? Everybody says they do, but do they really want to? It's a dicey work, right? So be compassionate with yourself, right? Treat yourself as if you're somebody that you really cared about, that you really wanted to have this experience. It's like, you don't have to be wishy-washy with yourself, but you definitely have to treat, like, let's say, you've had an incredible life of lucid dreaming, and now your children want to learn how to do it, right? And you just think that it's such a good skill and such a important thing to be able to do in life, and you've just gotten you've created this incredible life through this process. Well, and if you really thought it was that important, and you took your best friend or your children, somebody you really cared about, and they wanted to learn, you would do anything, to get them to do that, right? You can't make it happen for them, but you can encourage them, and you can, if they go, oh man, I slept right through my alarm, and I missed my opportunity. It's like, it's okay. You got another opportunity tonight. It's like, don't bash yourself for those things, keep yourself disciplined, keep yourself, in the zone as much as possible. But when you fall or you trip, it's like, you pick yourself back up and you go, maybe I'm pushing it too hard. Maybe I need 2 or 3 days to just sleep and get back at my good sleep routine. And then I'll make another attempt. That's fine. That's not giving up. It's like, you need to engage this with some kind of compassion for yourself, and definitely just treat yourself as if you were somebody that you really, really cared about. And you're going to get a lot farther with any of these techniques and anything in life, really. So once you find that fear, once you've written it down, or multiple ones, whatever, then we're going to go and how to dissipate them, how to take the teeth out, right? So how to keep them from overcoming you. So, so we need a process. This is, fears are emotions, right? So that's energy in motion. And so the idea is that, how do we dissipate energy? Well, you can't, put up a picture of, King Kong, if that's your fear, you're going to meet King Kong in your lucid dream and, put it on a heavy bag and start pounding the crap out of it, right? It's like, it might work for some people, but, if something's energetic or something's, energy or a mental process is something that you can't really control, right? If we could just control it, we just turn off the fear dial, right? So, that's not the case. So, when we figure that out, it's like we need a process mentally to get rid of it, right? To start draining the energy from it, right? So that just like my poor house plants that I didn't really like, how did I, without really, just tossing them out the door, you just stop watering them, right? And pretty soon you stop feeding them, you stop watering them, they just sort of shrivel up and die, right? And
Everyone's
so,
gonna be like, "Who's this Brian guy
yeah, he's a
who hates
psycho.
houseplants?"
He kills house plants. I like most of them, but some of them, I'm not too fond of. So, if I can't give them away, then they get my wrath. They circulate. They go
You're gonna
back.
get hate mail, man.
They get into the compost pile. That's it. They're restructured. So once I do this, so we're going to use the burning process. So the burning meditation, which you'll find Dustin has all that stuff in there somewhere, and so that process is a way. It's an old technique, and many cultures have it. I learned from an Asian culture, but I've seen the process done the same way in other cultures, from the Amazon to other areas too. And so so this is a way to burn off stress and mental fatigue, and that's the way it's usually stated. It's a general thing, but we're going to tweak it a little bit and make it specific. So when it comes to the point, and you'll see all the directions are there, and I do 2 different guided meditations through that, right? A short version, a long version. And it'll say, like, you'll get to a certain stage within the meditation where the stress and mental fatigue sort of exudes from your pores, right? It comes through the pores of your skin as like ash or sludge, oil, dark, it's black anyway, crusty stuff, whatever, it just comes out. And so then you're burning that off. And that black stuff represents the stress and mental fatigue and a general burning. Now I want you to tell yourself, when you start and then when you get to that stage, that this black represents this specific fear that you have about lucid dreaming. Okay, so you're literally telling yourself, like, what comes out is a symbolic representation of this fear. And so, and when you burn that off, there's a sympathetic link there. When you burn that off over and over and over again, right? Because the process happens for an extended period of time. When you burn that off, it's going to start draining the energy from that fear, and it's not going to have the teeth that it did before. And so we're identifying and eliminating those factors that would stymie us in our process and our progress toward our goal. So, yeah, and you can utilize that for anything. Just in this case, we're utilizing it for the fear around lucid dreaming, and then go from there. So nice, simple process. It doesn't take a lot. Okay.
Right. And and hopefully, one of my main goals here is to make sure that there's to reduce a sense of overwhelm when we're going through this course, because, right, there's going to be new things, there's going to be new practices, especially if this is your first course that you've done with us. There's going to be new terms. And so we're going to try to really cover all of that and familiarize you with some of the terms that Brian uses, and certainly with new meditations like the burning meditation, where there's multiple stages. It's not overly complicated, but there are multiple stages. It can be a lot to remember in the beginning. These guided meditations are really going to help. And just so that I know that I've covered all my bases, I think that all you really need to do the burning meditation, besides knowing, what fears you want to burn off with it for this particular exercise, is just a red candle, right, Brian? Like that's
Usually
the only physical thing that people will you know, you don't really, I mean, you don't need it. You can imagine it, but it's one of those good physical anchors to enhance
It is.
the
It is. And, you know,
exercise.
again, there's a sympathetic link there, right? Between the fire and the candle, which we think is a drop of the sun, you know, which is the thing that gives us life and produces growth. And so, since all of those things are linked, using that physical anchor, that, you know, that symbol, you know, and in front of us, it helps. It definitely helps, you know. And if it's not red, no big deal, right? I mean, red is traditionally what's used, but if you have a beeswax candle, a tea light, it doesn't matter. You know, fire is fire, right? So it's that element that's going to help you perform this in a much better way. So that link will get stronger and stronger over time. So believe me, if I didn't have a red candle, would I not do this until I got a red candle? Absolutely not. If I didn't have any candle, would I not do it until I didn't have any candle? Nope, I'd do it anyway. I would imagine the candle. I would put something else there that represents a candle until, you know, I got a candle and tried the difference, you know, and you know, but I wouldn't stymie my process again by you know, you don't want to get trapped into that uh, stagnation, or paralysis by overanalysis, right? Everything has to be perfect before I start this. It's like, no, the perfect time is right now. Start it right now. You know, don't, everything that happens to us is based on our decisions. And so, you know, every decision you've made has put you where you are right now. And so every decision you make from this moment will put you in a different place, right? So choices come up, you don't have to take them, but that's a decision too. I decide not to do that, you know, and I decide to do this instead. And, you know, when we look back on it, if we had made different choices in our life, if we had made different decisions and actions in our life, we would be in a different place right now, right? It might be worse, it might be better. You know, we all have examples of that where we went, "Whoo, I'm glad I didn't do that," you know, and you know, you're reveling in the in the fortune that you didn't do that, right? And then other things where you went, "Oh man, I should have got in on that because it's great," and, you know, but everything is based on your decisions. So it's really only about choices and decisions, right? So, you know, once you decide to do this, just do it. You know, get in there and do it. Don't put it off. You know, it's like that first initial, you know, emotion of elation and something new, and you know, that uncertainty that makes you feel good, right? Like, ooh, I really want to try this. This sounds crazy, you know. It's like, I want to do this. You know, that's the time to act, right? Because you start that, again, even from a physiological standpoint, you're starting that new neurological connection, right? And the more that you do that, you're going to be somebody who takes action rather than just thinks themselves away from anything that they want to do, right? Because it's never going to be the perfect time. You're never going to have all the components that you really want. It just doesn't work like that, right? So until you don't care, and then you'll have everything you want, and you'll be able to do it anytime you want, right? So that's the idea. So, you know, initially, just as soon as you have that inclination, just go and do. You know, attack it right from the beginning. Make the decision and do it. You know, you have 5 seconds. You have 5 seconds to, when you have a thought, to make a choice and take an action toward that. Otherwise, it just dissipates. It just goes away, right? It becomes less and less. And that's part of part of that neurological process, that those things just start to pair off and get less and less activity, right? So, you know, the more that you compound that, the better off you're going to be. So I'd like to say just do it, but you know, it's like way overused.
You don't want to sound like a commercial.
I don't want to say it like a crazy Shia LaBeouf or whatever, you know. So it's like, there
Oh,
you
right.
go.
All right, cool. So I think I hope that that's, you know, pretty straightforward, doing the observation of mind with that question and taking the answers that come up into the burning meditation to
Right.
burn off some of those fears. Yeah. Great.
Absolutely.
I know I've got some fears to burn, so I haven't named them yet because I haven't done the exercise with that tweak yet. But I can tell you that from my experience, I know that that's a huge factor in holding me back from doing this to the level that I want to. Is like just I can feel the fears that come up, whether it's when I'm in the dream and it snaps me back into my body, or whether I'm going to do it and I'm anticipating it, or like you said, when you're in that transitional phase between waking and dreaming. I mean, it's just it's a strange place of um, what seems like irrational kind of just raw fear. It can really bring
Right.
things up. So I'm excited to go through um, and do this exercise and see how it changes things. So
Awesome.
yeah. All right.
All right.
Well, thanks guys. Enjoy uh, and let us know how it goes.
And just do it.
Just do it. All right. See ya.
All right. Bye.